Welcome to another episode of Retro Reviews, the show where I waste away my time playing games from my past. So in this episode, we're going to take a look at Kirby's Adventure for the NES. This is the second game in the series, with the first game being Kirby in Dreamland. The plot goes something like this. An evil being known as Nightmare has corrupted the beloved Dream Fountain, which gave the citizens of Dreamland insomnia. It is up to Kirby to find the Dream Rod and stop Nightmare. However, King Dedede has beaten Kirby to the rod and has split it into pieces and given each of the pieces to one of his friends. So not only does Kirby have to take out Nightmare, he first has to gather up all the pieces of the rod and then defeat Nightmare. Well, talk about a strange adventure. So to put this plot in other terms, the citizens of Dreamland have been having nightmares so bad it's kept them up at night. And the only way to stop that is to find the Dream Rod and to remove the nightmare. Gee, why not just get a dream catcher? I hear that they prevent nightmares. However, King Dedede has the wand and split it into pieces and told his buddies to have a piece of it. So after you see a scene with Kirby being drawn in a white background and the company logo, you're then taken to the story. And then the game starts out on the map screen. Now, unlike most map screens in games where you see all over the map, but need to finish each level to get to the next, this one you only see the levels that you've completed first. And as you progress, more of the map will be revealed. The game is made up of 5 levels. This is made up of smaller areas in the game that also have bonus levels as well. But first, before we get into some of the game, let's go over the controls. Left and right on the directional pad moves Kirby forwards and backwards. However, if you quickly press one of these directions and then hold the button down, Kirby will go into run mode and he will run in that direction. Pushing the opposite direction while running will cause Kirby to skid to a halt. Pressing down on the D-pad will make Kirby squat. The A button causes Kirby to jump, and if you're walking, then press the jump button, Kirby will jump farther. And even farther if you're running while pressing the jump button. Pressing A or B while squatting will cause Kirby to slide. Pressing up will let doorways will cause Kirby to enter or exit the room. While Kirby is full of air, if you press the B button, it'll shoot out air pellets, but it'll also cause him to lose air. But if you press up right away, Kirby will inhale air again and start to float. Pressing B while in front of an enemy or a block will cause him to suck it up. Pressing up while full of an enemy will cause it to shoot it out as a star. You can also suck up multiple enemies at the same time. You start the first level off at Vegetable Valley, and you start at stage 1 of level 1. At the finish of each level, you'll get to what is called the goal game. Here you have to hit the A button at the right time to shoot Kirby as high as you can to get as many points as you can. I warn you, to get to the best result here is to hit the A button when the platform is at its lowest, and it will fly Kirby as high as you can get him. So each level has a bonus level or sub-game. These are Crane Fever, a skill crane game where you have to get one of 2 pink Kirbys. Egg Catcher, this one is short but not so simple. Here King Dedede throws eggs at you and you have to catch as many white ones as you can. The game ends when you catch a black one, and there's a bonus depending on how many eggs you've caught. Quick Draw, here you and one of the enemies face off in a western style quick draw shootout. Arena, which only appears in story mode. Here you have to defeat one of the enemies one-on-one. So there are a lot of similar enemies in each stage, and at the midpoint of each level you get to a mini-boss. But to get to the piece of the Dream Rod, you have to defeat the main level boss. And once you do that, you move on to the next level. So let's get into some details. Like I said, if you press the B button while near an enemy or a block, Kirby will suck the enemy up like a vacuum cleaner. However, once you have sucked up an enemy, you can press down on the D-pad and Kirby will swallow the enemy. Note, there are certain enemies that once swallow Kirby will copy the ability the enemy had. For example, if you swallow this one that has a sword, you then have a sword that Kirby can fight with. The first level is known as Vegetable Valley, and each level has an intro. Really, an intro to each level, that is strange, but then again, this is the NES era of gaming, so they had to make it interesting, I guess. This one has Kirby facing off with a Blade Knight. This level has 4 stages and a crane game and a museum. Most of the stages here are in grassy plains, however the 4th is set on a mountaintop. The crane game is a bit tricky since you have to use the A button to get the crane to move and to drop the crane when you think you have it in the right spot. Unlike most skill cranes, there's a high degree of difficulty with this. You get a 10 to 90% chance of getting the winning Kirby. What I mean is you have a 10% chance of success. But if you get it, you get to try again and some extra lives for your effort. and the museum has a Blade Knight that you can suck up and swallow to get his ability. So Festival Valley is kinda like your tutorial level, since it introduces some of Kirby's abilities. The first of the level bosses here is Whimsy Woods, a living tree that shoots out pellets and apples at you. All you have to do is suck up the apples and shoot them back at him. It'll take about 3 hits to finally defeat him, and once you do, then you go on to the next level, Ice Cream Isle. The intro to this level shows us Kirby enjoying a much needed beach time, when his dreams are interrupted by an enemy hitting him in the head from a dream bubble, and Kirby wakes up and is confused as to what just happened. Here you have 5 normal stages and another lovely crane game, and the first of the egg catcher bonus stages, along with a museum that has the laser ball who gives the laser ability, and Hothead that gives you fire. Also here is where you get the first arena battle with Mr. Frosty, who gives you freeze after you beat him. He is rather easy as he throws ice cubes at you, you suck them up and shoot them back at him. Once you finish each stage of Ice Cream Isle, you encounter the second boss, Paint Roller. Really, one of the bosses is named after something you can find at a hardware store? What is the next? Power Drill Brothers? Once you defeat him, then you make your way to the third level, Butter Building. This third level, Butter Building. Okay, should I have brought some lobster or toast with this? Anyway, the intro for this one sees Kirby on one of the high parts of the tower when a Poppy Brothers Sr. pushes him off and then tosses a bomb on his head, and then they run off like cowards. Most of the stages here take place on a winding building, as you work your way to the top. In this level you get pretty much all the bonus stages plus a museum and an arena. The start of this level is at the bottom of the tower, and you have to work your way to the top with each stage. Once you get to the top, you meet the third boss, or should I say bosses, because there are 2, Mr. Shine and Mr. Bright. One is the sun, and the other is the moon. This battle is a bit tricky since you have to face both of them. And once you defeat one, you have to defeat the other, and once you have done that, you get to move on to the next level. Grape Garden's intro, we see Kirby floating away while holding balloons. Well, in typical cartoon fashion, he starts to lose his grip on them one by one until there's only one left. And he can't hold his weight, so he ends up crashing down on the ground face first. Grape Garden is high above Dreamland and is full of pillowy clouds that has a large castle and is often visited by airships. Most of the winds are peaceful, but when airships are near, the winds are very turbulent. Grape Garden has 6 stages, along with, you guessed it, another crane fever, a quick draw, and a museum that has a nudie and a bubbles, as well as an arena that has Bugsy. Once you've beaten all the stages, you then end up facing the boss here, which is Krako, a large living cumulus cloud that likes to strike you with lightning while summoning enemies at you, which you suck up and spit at him. After a few hits, you defeat him and move on to the next level, Yogurt Yard. Yogurt Yard's intro, we see Kirby climbing a mountaintop trying to get to a maximum tornado, but once he gets there, he is tripped by the tornado and falls over the edge. The makeup of this level is one of the most unique ones in the game, since it has stages set outside a large mountain, but also inside as well. The level is mainly brown pyramids with some stages also having waterfalls. As you progress through the stages, you will get to face Heavy Mole, who King Dedede put here. It is said that Heavy Mole created the tunnels until he was destroyed. Once you have beaten him, then you head into the next level, Orange Ocean. Orange Ocean's intro shows us Kirby on a ship looking through a spyglass when he suddenly falls in and is chased by a shark. So this level is named when the citizens of Dreamland saw the perpetual sunset and its glow. The whole level is on an island, as well as the ocean as well. Most of the backgrounds are recycled from earlier levels. Here the map has a stage set on a ship. As you progress through the 6 stages and its mini-games, you will soon meet up with Meta Knight, who is the boss of this level. After beating him, you get to the last and final level of the game, Rainbow Resort. So, in the last level of the game, Rainbow Resort, the intro gives us Kirby singing into the rainbow above him when it suddenly collapses, but Kirby was a bit quicker and pulls out an umbrella he had on him, thus avoiding the debris. So, as you progress through the 6 stages here, you will encounter 2 main areas to take note of. One of the stages pays homage to the first game and is all in black and white, and another stage is a tower where Kirby has to fight each of the mini-bosses he had already encountered earlier levels. Once you reach the top, you encounter the first of the final bosses in the game, King Dedede himself. This battle is a bit tricky. You have to wait until he slams his hammer down, causing stars that Kirby can suck up and shoot back at him. Once you defeat him, you will now have an assembled star rod. However, as you're about to put it in the fountain, King D, as we call him now, tries to stop you, but to no avail, and you slam it into the back of the fountain, and as soon as you do, you are then faced the final boss, Nightmare himself. The last level entry sees Kirby heading towards the fountain where King Dedede falls to the ground, grabbing Kirby like a kid hanging onto the ankles of his parents, trying to prevent Kirby from replacing the star rod. Kirby gets fed up with it and knocks the king off. He then puts the rod back when the sky starts to turn dark. And a ball of darkness covered in stars appears, which happens to be our final boss, Nightmare. The king sucks up Kirby and the star rod and spits them into space, and thus starts the final boss battle. So after you have replaced the star rod, Nightmare appears in his first form, a powerful spinning ball. You have to use the power of the rod to defeat him. When he stops spinning for a few brief moments, once you beat that form, he then takes his final form, a vampire-like figure. Here you have to wait until his cape is open and hit him, otherwise it will never cause any damage. As soon as you defeat him, you catch a star taking you through space and back to Dreamland. As you travel back, you see King Dedede, and you are told that he had actually hit the star to prevent Nightmare from getting it, thus allowing Kirby to get it. So now that I have went over all the details of each level, I do have some likes and some dislikes. Kirby's Adventure is a fun little platformer with some awesome level design and artwork. However, the color scheme seemed like it was repeated a bit from other levels. The map screen is a neat little idea. It keeps you wanting to play the game to see the rest of the map. And if you want to go back and replay levels, you can. At some point in the game, you will get the ability to use the Star Warp to travel between levels, so you don't have to traverse the whole map. However, I wish you could have retried the minigames to see if you could do better. The museum in some levels is a great idea to give you an advantage for the next level. But like I said at the start, the first time an enemy hits you, you lose the ability, but you have a chance to get it back as it leaves in the form of a star. But you have to be quick or it bounces away and you're SOL on that. Let's talk about the minigames for a bit. The first one is Crane Frenzy. For this one, you have to hold the A button till you get the crane where you want it, and then once you release it, the crane lowers. However, like most of these skill cranes, there's a small chance you get the right Kirby, but a bigger chance of coming up empty. I hate playing these both in the real world and in this game. However, in the game, you are not out of a buck or more. The next one is Egg Catcher. This one I actually hate, because it's way too quick. You have absolutely no chance of avoiding the bombs and ending any chance of getting more eggs. The next one is Quick Draw, or what I like to call the good, the bad, and the lame. This one I have only been able to win once. The rest of the time I failed miserably. The next is the Arena. These are just a versus battle between Kirby and one of the bosses you've faced before. Nothing new here. The gold game is a great way to earn some extra points. However, again, this is one of those games like Quick Draw. You have to be quick or you just get to the lowest one and get nothing at all. So as I mentioned before, certain enemies give you their abilities once you have Kirby swallow them. These are Backdrop, Ball, Beam, Crash, Cutter, Fire, Freeze, Hammer, High Jump, Ice, Laser, Light, Mic, and Needle, Paracel, Sleeve, Spark, Star Rod, Stone, Sword, Throw, Tornado, UFO, and Wheel. Whew, that's a lot. These are great, however, sometimes it's hard to try and get every one of them in the game, as the enemies show up, or as soon as you get them, you lose it when you are attacked, or you accidentally hit B instead of down. The controls are hard to figure out. Granted, I was using a controller from a PS Classic, which worked wonderfully, but it was hard to figure out on the fly. I had times I caught enemies you can copy from, but ended up pressing B by mistake and lost my chance to gain it until I encountered the enemy again. The mini bosses are rather simple to beat. All you have to do is suck up what they throw at you and spit it back at them. Only thing that makes them tough is when they often try to run at you. Some of them are rather strange looking as well. Look at this one that looks like a wheel or a large record that shoots many of itself at you. You can also make quick work of them if you have a copied ability. An evil being known as Nightmare has corrupted the beloved Dream Fountain, which gave the citizens of Dreamland insomnia, and it's up to Kirby to find the Dream Rod and stop Nightmare. However, King Dedede has beaten Kirby to the Dream Rod and has split it into pieces and give each of the pieces to one of his friends. So not only does Kirby have to gather up all the pieces of the rod, folks, this is what's called a blooper. Pressing up while at doorways will cause Kirby to enter the room or exit the room. While Kirby is full of air, if you press the B button, Kirby will shoot air pellets. But it will cause Kirby to lose air, but if you press... Another blooper. Pressing up while at doorways will cause Kirby to enter or exit the room. While Kirby is full of air, if you press the B button, Kirby will shoot out air pellets, but it will cause him to lose air. But if you press up right away, Kirby will inhale air again and start to float again. Pressing B will in front of an enemy or a black. Damn, autocorrect. So each level has a bonus level, or sub-game. These are Crane Fever, a skill crane game where you have to get one of the two pink Kirbys. A catcher, this one is short but not so simple. Here King Dedede throws eggs at you and you have to catch as many as you can while the ones you can't. But once you get the black one, the game ends. And you get a bonus depending on how many eggs you caught. Quick draw, here you are one of the... blooper. So each level has bonus levels, or sub-game. These are Crane Fever, a skill career game where you have to get one of two pink Kirbys, Egg Catcher. This one is short but not so simple. Here King Dedede throws eggs at you and you catch as many as you can while trying to not get the black ones. But if you get a black one, the game ends and the bonus... Hey folks, it's another blooper, look out. In short, Kirby's Adventure is the wonderful platformer and is well worth playing. Plus, with the new Kirby game that just released a few days ago, it is worth it to play through the older ones if you can. Just don't bother watching the animated series that aired a few years ago, Kirby Right Back at Ya. It's a disaster in my opinion. So with that, I'm Paul saying peace out and stay frosty.